Hello. I think this is working. It just told me a second ago that I had a bad service. So hopefully this is actually working now. I decided to pick a prettier spot this time than last week, so you get to see my Christmas tree behind us. Let's see. So it looks like it's still working on building an audience for me. So if you can hear me, let me know in the comments. Apparently my cat wants to be a part of this as well. Okay. Hey, siblings, stop talking. So I stop getting messages. All the time. All the time they talk. Back and forth on Facebook Messenger. Anyway, so if you can hear me, let me know. I'm going to get started here in just a second. Carlton. My cat really wants to be a part of this, I think. Anyway, like I said, here's my Christmas tree. It's very pretty. We have some stuff up in the window too. This morning as we were leaving for daycare, the lights were still on outside in the house, and Henry said, "Daddy did such a good job putting up the lights on the house." And then he said, "And I did such a good job putting the star up on the tree." Apparently I did nothing to set all this up, so I get no credit. So anyway, okay, so hopefully you guys can hear me. I wanted to get on today and tell you a little bit more about the story behind the magazine, and I need to mute this conversation with my siblings so that it doesn't keep popping up on my screen. Okay, there we go. Hi Madison, I'm so glad that you're here, although I'm pretty sure that you should be in bed because it's really late where you are right now. I see Chris is here too. Chris, are you there still? I see that it says you're here. So, hi Chris. So anyway, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about why I started the magazine and how I started it and kind of the idea behind it. I know that some of you have probably heard this before. I think I did a Facebook Live on it months ago. It was one of the very first ones I ever did. But I know we have a lot of new faces around here that I'm really excited about, so I wanted to give you guys kind of an update and tell you a little bit more about us and me and why we're all here. So seriously, my cat is like, oh, there's my cat, and he's like seriously all about this right now. He just keeps rubbing his head on the table. I'm pretty sure at some point the phone is gonna fall. So anyway, so the backstory is, I guess if you want to go way back for me, I went to school I originally started in journalism. That was my idea, was to go to a journalism school and become a writer, because I've always really loved to write. And so I signed up for Central Michigan University, and before I even got there, I had changed my mind and moved into interior design, and then I moved to fashion. So I ended up graduating with a degree in apparel, textiles, and merchandising, which is just a fancy way of saying fashion. So after that, I decided to go back to school and get my master's degree. So I have a master's in business. Cat's tail, all up in my business right now. So I have a master's degree in business from Franklin University in Columbus, Ohio, and I kind of got that one because I was afraid that people would just see that I have a fashion degree and possibly think that I didn't really know much about business and things like that, so went ahead and did that. Shortly after I graduated with that, I think we had just moved to the Pittsburgh area, and I was working in health insurance, which is obviously not anywhere close to either fashion or business. So I started blogging at that time, and originally I was blogging as I was doing fashion blogging, and I started out not being in front of the camera because I'm not really comfortable being in front of the camera, which you can probably tell because I say and a lot. But eventually I had people that were asking for me to do outfit posts and things like that, so I started doing those. to the great delight of my husband, who had to take my pictures all the time. So after doing that for a while, I'm never all that comfortable in front of the camera, and then I got pregnant, and it made it even worse. I was not a glowy pregnant woman. I did not like being pregnant. I just felt very out of control of my body and did not feel attractive. I remember many breakdowns in my closet because I didn't feel like I had anything that fit me or that looked nice or anything like that. So it was during that time that I kind of stepped a little bit away from fashion blogging and started talking a little bit more about just what life was like for me, especially while I was pregnant. And it was through there that I realized that there was something that was missing in media, because I was starting to get a lot of emails and comments and things from readers saying, oh my goodness, thank you for actually being honest about what this is like. Thank you for saying that, it's not always love at first sight when you meet your child, and that sometimes it's just really, really hard, and that pregnancy isn't always, what you see on TV, and, these women who are wearing stilettos around while they're 9 months pregnant, and it wasn't like that for me, and I was very honest about it. And as I started to get those comments, it kind of shocked me to realize how desperate people were to hear these honest words. And so I decided to, kind of around the same time, I had been thinking that I had really wanted to try out the idea of a magazine. I had no idea what went into it, but in my mind I was thinking it can't be that hard. I had never intended to do a print magazine, so I just figured a digital online magazine, it can't be that hard. So I figured that I might as well kind of give it a shot, see what would happen. I had this idea the whole time of wanting to tell these stories because of the responses I was getting when I was pregnant, and I knew that was kind of the backbone of what I wanted the magazine to be. But in the beginning of everything, I thought I had to do all of the things. I thought I had to be a magazine that talked about fashion and talked about DIY and talked about food and talked about business and talked about basically everything that would relate to a woman. I thought that I had to do all of those things. I thought that my idea of this, essentially a collection of short stories, wasn't enough to stand on its own. And so I did all of those things, and I continued to do all of those things when people kept telling me, no, you can't just do stories, it has to be more, you can't cut out all of these other sections. And eventually I kind of just started listening to my gut and listening to the responses from the readers and things like that, and I thought about what I am good at, and what I am good at is sharing other people's stories. Holl & Lane is never going to be the magazine that knows all about interior design or knows all about fashion or has the best crafts, because that isn't where our passion was. And so my husband's walking out here, but it says he's on here.
I think the Wi-Fi works. So.
Oh. So I never... I didn't want to lose readers by losing these sections, but at the same time I kind of felt like I was losing what I had set out to do, and what I set out to do was the stories. So a little bit at a time I started to kind of pare back, and I started to just do what I felt in my gut was the right thing for the magazine, and that was telling these stories. And so we increased the story section, and we slowly cut out the other sections. And November, this very last issue that we had, which was our 10th issue, so it kind of felt like we were coming full circle or something, but it was our very first issue that didn't focus on all of these other things, that was very strictly focused on the stories. And probably unsurprisingly, it's been our bestseller so far. Because I think when you really get down to the heart of a business, if you do what feels right to you, then you're always going to be more successful. So going forward, we've we've rededicated to focus just on these stories and focus on what we do best, and I think it's probably going to continue to grow from there because we're doing what we've always set out to do. So before I continue, I wanted to say if anybody is watching that had any questions about my journey or anything like that, or anything that you want to know about why I started and how I started, or any specific questions about that, I'd love to answer them, so just leave them in the comments. And we had a question earlier in our Facebook group from Madison, and she asked how you got the idea from starting the magazine to decide the focus would be on the stories, and did you have any other ideas, or was it always the stories you were interested in? And I kind of, just talked about that a little bit, that it was always the stories that I wanted to do, but unfortunately I kind of let other people get in my head and tell me that I had to do all of the other things that I didn't feel as passionate about. I loved the other stuff that we've done in the previous 9 issues, but it was never what I set out for this magazine to be. I always wanted it to be a place that people could come and tell their honest stories, and feel like they were connected to other people who have also gone through these things. And I think that's what we've really been building for the past few months here. We've really been building this community that feels honest and that feels vulnerable, and I'm really excited about that. So we have, coming in 2017, some very interesting ideas that I think is going to promote this idea of community even further. I've kind of briefly mentioned some of them, but I have some other ideas in the works. One that I actually sprung on my team today after I was at the gym and thought it was a really great idea. So, these kind of ideas that I don't really know how they're going to work yet, but I think that they would be kind of amazing if we could figure it out. So, in 2017, I'm still entertaining the idea of a podcast, which is something that we had talked about before. But in the meantime, we're going to kind of scale that back and try something different. I am really interested in doing some in-person events, even if it's just like a, hey, I'm at a bar tonight and I would love for you all to join me for a drink and we'll chat and kind of get to know each other. So I'm hoping to do something like that in Pittsburgh this year, 2017. I feel like it's basically this year. And basically just kind of grow this little business that we have going on here. I want to make sure that we're reaching as many people as possible that needs this magazine, that needs something to tell them that their stories are okay, that needs something that will tell them that you don't have to hide when you feel overwhelmed, and we can erase the stigma of some of these of these tougher topics, like mental health, like we have coming up in April. I think it's really important that we talk about these things, and I'm excited to really dive into them. So yes, Holl and Lane meetups would be so fun. I'm very excited about it, and I hope that we'll be able to do them early in the new year. It's just kind of a matter of finding the time to do them. Specifically with my work schedule, so we'll see what can happen there, but I hope that's something that becomes a reality. So I think that's kind of the main idea behind why I started and how I started. It was almost kind of a whim. It was something that I had wanted to do for a while, but at one point I just decided, okay, it's time, and I believe it was in April of 2015 I decided it was time, and then it was just, I'm going to do it. I talked to some of my friends to be contributors, and I just went ahead and published it on June 1st, 2015. So, would you say is the biggest obstacle in the biggest obstacle in the early days of making it? I think it's kind of still the biggest obstacle, and that's essentially building the business. building a business is really hard, especially when you don't have a whole lot of time to spend on the building part. I'm hoping that in 2017, now that we've scaled back to 4 issues a year, that will give us a little bit more time to focus on the actual building part. But to put a product out there and get people to know about it and get people to take a chance on it, especially when they have to spend money, that's a really hard thing to do. We have luckily never had a problem finding contributors. It's been amazing to see how many people are interested in sharing their stories and connecting with other people. So I've always been super grateful that people are willing to do that, especially for free, because we don't pay our contributors or photographers for that matter. And people have always been very interested in being a part of this, and so I'm excited that this mission has resonated with them so much that they're willing to give their time and their talents with no compensation. So that has been incredible. So just, I think in any business, it's probably just growing it that is difficult. So, but luckily with an awesome team now, especially, I'm able to put a little bit more focus on that part and see where it might take us. So I don't think I have much else to say about it. If anybody has questions after we're done here, if you want to just leave them in the comments, I'm happy to answer them after that as well. Next week, I'm excited because I don't have to do the Facebook Live. Mia, who is our editorial manager, will be doing the Facebook Live. She'll come on and talk a little bit about her background and talk about why she is still with the team after a year and a half of not getting paid, and you know, what she thinks of Holl & Lane and all of those kinds of things. I'm excited because we're going to be having all of the Holl & Lane team join at some point and do a Facebook Live so that you'll get to know them better, and hopefully they'll kind of continue to do it in the future so that it's not always my face on here. So yeah, I think that's all. I think that's you know, a little bit about kind of the short version of why I started the magazine and what I hope that it will do. I hope that it will I found that my passion is really helping people and helping people share their stories, because I think that is something that's incredibly powerful and is very much needed in this world that always makes us feel like we have to be perfect, like Instagram perfect, and pretty much nobody ever is. So that's it from me, and I hope that you guys learned a little bit more about me and about what goes into this. We did a blog post previously about the literal steps that it takes to publish one of our magazines, so I can link to that too, just so that you can go back and see that sometime if you'd like. But otherwise, have a great night. I'm gonna go lay on the couch, watch a little bit of TV, and then pass out because I'm exhausted. So we will see you next week at 8:30 again, right here. We'll be talking with Mia, and I hope you have a great night. I'll talk to you later. Bye.